Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Steel City Insider podcast. I am part of this duo. My name is Jeremy Hritz, alongside the Jim Wexell of the Steel City Insider, and we are here welcoming you to episode number 8 of the podcast. Jim, very excited to be here with you this morning to talk a Steelers win.
Oh, I tell you, that game was so exciting. It really was. I got a call from my editor at Steeler Digest right after the game. What do you want to write about? I was just so excited. And he was so excited that I was excited that he might get some good copy for once.
It was a it was a satisfying win. That was the word that I used to describe it, following the win in Cleveland against really a top defensive unit in the Browns, not only against the rush, but the pass. And they were also the number 1 ranked rushing offense. And really the Steelers put it all together. We're going to cover all aspects of the game, from Najee Harris's big performance, the defensive line maintaining their gap integrity, and even that spooky Halloween fake field goal that failed so miserably. We're going to get into all that. And we'll finish up, as we always do, with the terrible 3 with Jim. But Jim, let's jump right into it. The Steelers are back in the thick of things, moving to 4-3 with this big AFC North win. They're in 3rd place, and they're getting ready for the Bears and the Lions, and have a real shot to go 6-3. But what was it about this game offensively that we saw some more improvement across the board? Offensive line, Harris, those tight ends. But what stood out to you the most as being the reason on the offensive side of the ball for them being able to hang on for the 15-10 win?
Well, it was only 15 points, so I don't want to get too carried away, but I really like how Ben is, this is the wrong word, but he's kind of cute dealing with these RPOs. You know, Mason Rudolph came in, and it seems like every week Ben says something that makes me think that we're all right, that he hates Mason. Hate might be strong, but when Mason came in, he was all gung-ho on the RPOs. He did it in college. He was one of the young kids coming up that did this all the time, and it came naturally to him. Ben, man, it didn't come naturally to him. It was a struggle. I think he didn't throw that pick in the end zone from the 2-yard line to a nose tackle that ended a game. Was it Kansas City?
Denver. Was it against Denver a couple years ago?
Malik Jackson. Yeah.
Yes.
Malik was in a funny. He got penalized after he got called for holding. It was one of those defensive holding calls that Hockley made, and Malik Jackson was very funny. If you look at that play over again, but I don't want to get lost on Malik Jackson. But Ben struggled with the RPOs, and now he's getting it.
Right.
What was the pass to DJ at the end, the 50-yarder? I mean, he just stuck that right in his chest, and that was a key play. Yeah. That was a little risky too. I could see Twitter erupting over an incomplete pass there. Tomlin doesn't know what he's doing with time management. There we go again. But it was a needed pass. It was completed, and then he went 50, and then he stayed in bounds. All these little things, and the offensive line. It's funny. So I just somebody tweeted today about Pro Football Focus gave their tackles a 0, or Dan Moore a 0 in pass protection. But we all loved how they ran blocked so well that we didn't care that Myles Garrett beat him every single time.
Yeah. And it's Myles Garrett too. I mean, come on.
It's Myles Garrett. And they didn't give him as much help as we expected. Ben just got his eye over there all the time and threw some beautiful timing patterns. So what was good about the offense? And they're using the middle of the field. All these things we've been talking about. And the tackles are going to come along. I firmly believe Dan Moore is going to come along, and that he had another lesson from Myles Garrett. So lessons are learned. And overall, what they learned most is, I'm wearing my Bobcat colors today. And so
I saw the tie there. You had on your Facebook. Was it for the MAC championship they played?
That was for the regular season championship.
Regular season championship.
still got a bye, so that was key. They
Okay.
tied 10th and they got a bye, so they're in the semifinals. They jump right to the semis Thursday, so it's a big week for the Bobcats. They can go to the NCAA tournament if they win 2 more games.
Okay.
And so, but what I noticed about them in the beginning of the year, they were talented, but they went 3-0, and then they lost a couple easy games. They don't realize, and this relates to the Steelers. Is why I bring this up. They didn't realize until then how hard they have to play to win. It's not like they're overly talented. They have enough talent, but they still have to play so hard. And the Steelers got away with it against Seattle, but they played so hard against Cleveland, and they have to remember how hard they played. So they do this every week. I think personally, that was the overriding lesson that they all learned in this game.
Yeah. And drilling down a bit more into that offense, the tight ends, they probably had their best game as a complete unit. And what's surprising about that is that Eric Ebron wasn't on the field. It was Freiermuth.
That surprises you?
It doesn't surprise me because I've been advocating for Ebron to be traded or even released. But Freiermuth, we knew he was going to come around. But Gentry, I mean, he continues to grow as a blocker. And that big reception where he got open for 20 yards, I think that was a third down play. But I don't see how they put Ebron back on the field with what they've generated in the running game with these two on the field, and just the passing attack. I know that's a second consecutive game. I think they're through a little screen at Gentry. But what do you account for this improvement in the tight ends?
I really don't want to see that screen anymore. I mean, it worked the first time. And what happened this past week is what we see all the time, whether it's practice or preseason. Couple yards, just a big lumbering guy, and he's got good hands. He's quick enough. And he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, it's exciting to see him develop. And he came as a quarterback and a thinking type guy and a tough guy. So I'm glad they've allowed him to, because not everybody, a lot of people wanted to cut him in favor of Raider. And they thought Ebron would stick. And I've been calling for Ebron to move out and replace Juju as that power slot receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Just get him out of the interior. And now we see, Freiermuth still needs work and he needs to get stronger. But, I mean, you make catches like he made.
Gosh.
I know we're jumping around, but it's funny. I saw a show last week. Ingram, I'm unsure of what's going on there. The reports are unclear. The Steelers are answering their phone. Okay, great. They're fielding offers. Who wouldn't? You answer your phone and you listen.
Yeah.
Does that mean that Ingram is mad? Well, all of a sudden he had this groin injury. Possible. And then with Ebron, all of a sudden out and wanting more opportunities. The national shows started this, what's wrong with the Steelers locker room? And I'm thinking, what's right? How happy can everybody be when, especially Ebron, somebody who's dissatisfied and really isn't helping all that much anyway, doesn't really buy into the team, not the team concept, but what the Steelers believe in fundamentally as in toughness in football, in what we saw against Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of hard fought on the ground, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and then throw an RPO in for 50 yards at the end. That's just not Ebron's game. He belongs somewhere fancier. Does that mean the locker room's in tumult because this guy is unhappy? I gotta believe the locker room is deliriously happy that they found their identity back.
Yeah,
that they're going with this now. I can't speak for Ingram, but if he's unsatisfied too, the same thing. I mean, Highsmith's showing me a lot. I know he's not getting the sacks people might expect. Man, he's a rugged run defender, and he's where he needs to be seemingly all the time.
Right. Yeah, I don't see how they can go back to putting Ebron on the field, or even if he does, if he's not traded, maybe just a handful of snaps. I don't think you tinker with what's the chemistry that's there between Freiermuth and Gentry. And maybe even pull up Raider. Let's get some 3 tight end sets. Let's go, heavy, because that running game, they just wore the Browns down.
Or Derek Watt. I've been advocating Derek Watt more on as a slot tight end. So yeah, Raider. But they have so many receivers, and then you lose Juju, and I'm thinking, okay, Ebron can do that. You've got Claypool for the slot. Washington's a rugged wide receiver, and you got Watt, and then you've got Banner to come back and be that third tight end. So I don't really know that you miss Ebron, and I don't know. You could get a comp pick for him if he signs a lucrative enough free agent contract. I don't know if he's still that caliber player. If somebody else is going to be interested enough to get back a 6th rounder, say, because, I think it was you that said trade him for a 7th rounder. I don't know if you want to do that right now, because in theory, you could get that back at the end of the year as a comp pick.
Got it. Well, closing out the offense here, I'd be remiss if I didn't give some love to Matt Canada. I feel like this was the first time I saw the pre-snap motions and the jet sweeps and really the plays building off of each other, and Ben looking comfortable with the fakes. There was one play where it was a fake handoff, and then he rolled out, and it was a nice throw. But it seemed like everything fit together. Did you notice that this weekend in terms of the play calling?
I'm also noticing Ben's commentary is very favorable to Canada, and that he's not always like that. Offensive coordinators. So he's really meshing with Canada. And yes, I really like the play calling. I did. Matt Canada might not be the most warm guy for media. He just doesn't seem to care for the media and all that. He just doesn't want to deal with the media. He strikes me as a total college coach. But it's growing on me. I'm liking it. The reverse to Claypool. Was it Claypool?
Yeah.
That was a nice play. And they're utilizing Ray well. I like it. And of course, Najee, that worm dance was kind of symbolic of how he runs. Yeah. I'm not going to be stopped if I have to do this little worm thing to get a few extra inches. And, 3rd and 5, he got 5. When it didn't look like he was going to get 5. 4th and 1, looked like he was stopped 2 yards behind the line. That was the greatest 1-yard run I've seen, right?
Yeah.
Brings to mind Walter Payton in that way. And, of course, Franco Harris. The stats are so similar between Franco and Najee Harris in their first 6-7 games. And this is where Franco took off. He went on that 6-game 100-yard streak. I believe he played in the 14-game season, and he got his 1,000 when it really that was tough to do. Now 17 games, you should get 1,000.
Yeah.
And Freiermuth and Heath Miller, I mean, the stats are so comparable there. I know it's just easy, and people probably want to kill me for making these obvious comparisons, but it's too obvious.
Yeah.
So you wanted to maybe talk about Freiermuth's comp?
Yeah. I the first thing I want to say is just with Harris, he never gives up on a play. And I'm waiting for that one moment this season where it looks like he's bottled up, and then he just, and then he's gone for like an 80-yard touchdown. I could see it because he just doesn't quit on a play.
Or that moment when he's bottled up, they blow him dead, then he takes off for 80 yards, and he wants to know why it was blown dead because his forward progress won't stop. I think we're going to have those issues with him too.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely special.
Conditioned to horrible calls, I guess.
The other thing I wanted to point out too is just in terms of Canada, with the reverses and the pre-snap motion, the jet sweeps and all those things, is it's putting things on film to where the defense is going to be expecting it and they're not going to be certain. So I think that there is an element of just building off of those plays. Let's say that they run that same formation now on that reverse. They run the reverse, but they fake it and they do inside handoff, or they run play action off of it. So I think that's where the effectiveness of Canada's offense really is going to grow, is just everything that's being put on film. Teams now have to prepare for all of it. So, that's super exciting. And let's shift gears a bit, Jim, and jump over to the defense, because really it was the defense that put this team in position to win the game, especially without a kicking game there at the end. I don't know how they pulled that off. But to me, it all starts with Cameron Hayward, who, not only has he been the Steelers defensive MVP, I know everybody wants to say TJ Watt, but Cam has been unstoppable. If he continues to play this way, I think he's got to be in the conversation for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Now, his stats aren't gaudy, but I mean, just consistently what he does from a game-to-game basis. But it really all started with him and that defensive line, maintained their gap integrity, and they shut down the number one rated rushing attack, which is no small feat. What was your overall impression with the defensive performance this Sunday against Cleveland?
It seemed like they talked Cleveland out of running the ball and doing what they do poorly with a banged up quarterback. They don't do that poorly. And their receivers were more to blame than Baker Mayfield was. Mm-hmm. But they talked them out of running the ball just by formation. So I don't know if Isaiah Buggs had that good of a game. He had 24 snaps, and I had said after last game, I'm sure his snap count is going to go lower. It went higher. So I was wrong about that. So I'm assuming, without watching Buggs too closely, that he played a much better game than he did against Seattle. They played a lot more base defense. Cam Hayward really doesn't have the kind of stats to talk about the awards you're talking about. I just hope I think he's getting the recognition he deserves, at least from Steelers fans and nationally. And he deserves all of that. But 1.5 sacks, I know the position he plays doesn't help your stats, but he's going to have to, he would really have to pour that on. It's funny. We could vote for Cam Hayward as the team MVP and TJ Watt as defensive player of the year, just because you've got to have those stats.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're starting to take TJ for granted. There, he came up with a fumble recovery, a key fumble recovery. As he said, hey, I just fell on a ball. It doesn't take anything to fall on a ball. Schobert's the one that pried it loose. And Schobert was better. I like the philosophy that we're going to play our base defense. We're using a nose tackle. Even if he did stink last game, we're using Buggs. And I saw Henry Mondo flying around.
Yeah.
Isaiah Loudermilk got a sack. That had to be the one where Baker Mayfield ran out of bounds after 0 yards. I can't remember Loudermilk's sack, but Loudermilk's playing well for a late round rookie. Mm-hmm. The defensive line, and you're going to get to it back, I assume, soon enough.
Yeah. I mean, they were, that Buffalo game when they opened the season, I thought that they couldn't play a better defensive game. And I don't know if the game against the Browns was as good, but it was up there. It just felt like across the board, pressure on the quarterback, stopping the run. It just felt like overall they played well.
Tackling.
One player that I felt like didn't get a lot of credit this game, and there was some criticism of him, was Devin Bush, because he bit on that inside fake on that touchdown. I felt like he was aggressive and all over the field. And it was the first time this season where I saw him in the backfield, blowing up plays, just being everywhere. So sure, he could have been more stable in his pursuit of the runner there, but I felt like he played an overall good game.
I thought so too. About that touchdown run, I thought he was a little over aggressive because Minka had that shoulder of that running back covered. So Bush came flying in needlessly, but I'll say this, that cut that runner made. I mean, we wanted to know why this Dearness Johnson put up such numbers with the top two running backs out when he put them up a buck 46 against Cardinals.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Now we can see why.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? Oh, he's that guy. Oh, he's Gale Sayers. Okay. I did not know he could cut like that. That was elite.
Yeah.
So let's give Devin a little comfort that anybody would have got beat on that. He was a little over aggressive. However, as you say, they were trying to screen the Steelers to death, and he was all over. He was the main man defending those screens. Not that the he did that great of a job, but he's got the quickness, and
Yeah.
he was sideline to sideline. And you know, you look at his stats and you say, wow, they moved up for the 10th pick of the draft. And when you move up for an inside linebacker, you're expecting more than what we're complimenting him on. It's Ray Lewis. That's what you expect. That's the kind of players that's up there. Luke Kuechly. Those are the kind of players that are middle linebackers at number 10 in the draft. And he just hasn't been that overwhelming force.
Yeah.
So, and we'll give him time with his ACL continue. But this was a nice sign, and he's a fast player, and he was a sure tackler in this game. So that's a step. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that, if this was his first, at least for me, the first game where I saw him actually look quick, more certain and assured in his decision-making and his reaction, that maybe we start to see him, just like the rest of the team, incrementally improving each game, that by the end of the season, maybe he's back to where he was or even better prior to that injury. And just quickly touching on the secondary, they were pretty quiet. Some good, nice run support from Terrell Edmonds. I saw him up there, around the line of scrimmage, stopping the run. Cameron Sutton had a nice play. I think it was on a little screen that he blew up in the backfield. But, the secondary was quiet, but that's not a bad thing. They really didn't give up the big play.
Well, right after that play that Sutton made, Joe Hayden made a really nice play. And I don't know if you've noticed, it seems like teams are staying away from Joe Hayden. And every time they test him, he's a solid tackler. I wanted to dismiss him a little bit because I had heard the Steelers did not extend his contract because they felt he lost a half a step. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing. I see. I think he's one of the stalwarts of this defense. I think he's playing exceptionally well. He's so smart, and he's a sure tackler for a corner.
Yeah.
And I thought Minka got back to bringing load as a tackler after an awful Seattle game. I know he did miss one tackle, but he had a big pass breakup. It was at the end of the game, one of those last drives, a key third or fourth down pass breakup.
Yeah.
Might have been a fourth down. He's a good player. They tried, and I'm sure they're not done trying because Trey Norwood's still developing, but and Minka shows his value when he's not your center fielder. He shows what you're missing when you have someone else back there.
Yeah.
And he has gotten beat deep, probably trying to do too much because the defensive coaches want him to do more. Right. So I think, where Tomlin was criticizing him for losing the lid on the defense, it's because I think he knows they all want so much more out of him, more like a strong safety, So I thought Minka played well, and you mentioned Edmonds. Yeah, and that defense overall, the tackling and the urgency they played with, they played so hard, and they have to remember that. Just remember that and keep playing that hard. They have to play that way against the Bears, just like they play against the Browns. I know it's a totally different level for them mentally, but they have to.
Right.
They're not that good. They have to play this hard.
Right. They're that gritty, scrappy, and I've described them on my other show. They're an ugly team, but they're getting better every week, and it's gonna be a battle. And if they can keep that going, and that's their identity, and if they can sneak into the playoffs, they're going to be one of those teams that you don't want to play. So it's good to see that they're progressing. And then, Jim, let's close this out. Special teams, we got to talk that fake field goal. It's a minor miracle they were able to win not having a field goal kicker, especially as tight as the game was. I know when Boswell went out, I was like, that's it. I don't know if they could pull it off. They had to go for it every down there. And I think that Freiermuth touchdown was on a fourth down play, if I'm remembering. But the fake field goal, I know for me, I'm okay with it. I know it didn't work out. Boswell got hurt in the process. Looking back on it, was it the best call? No. But at times you have to be aggressive and you have to take your risks, because if it would have worked out, Tomlin looks like a genius. But
it's still, how do you look like a genius on a first half play? And that's what I don't get about all the animosity, all the rage on social media over 3 points in the first half. I don't want to. I mean, I know people are wrapped up in this game, and a lot of people don't like Tomlin, his X's and O's on field. Oh, we love him off the field. He's a great guy, but on the field, I don't agree with all that. And this, anytime one of these examples comes up, it becomes the Tomlin, the people that like Tomlin versus the people that hate Tomlin, and the people that hate Tomlin probably rooted against the Steelers to win that game and missed out on it. You called it satisfying. I call it invigorating win. I mean, it was more than satisfying to me. 15-10, the way they played. And then they played without the kicker. And I'm not an analytics guy, but analytics guys for years have been saying, go for it every fourth down. Don't kick field goals. Don't punt. Well, okay, this was the opportunity. Yeah. And the Freiermuth touchdown was on a fourth down. And if you do the math, they scored one fewer point without the kicker than they would have. I mean, you know, things change, but if you look at, if they would have kicked the field goal there, that was 3 points. And then if they would have kicked the field goal instead of gone for the touchdown, that was minus 3 points. And going for 1 instead of 2. Anyway, it would have been 16-10. It would have been the same thing. The Browns would have needed a touchdown at the end, whether you had your kicker or not. And it was fun to watch without a kicker, just knowing that you had to go for everything. So it was cool. There really wasn't any deliberation about on fourth down. You had to go for it.
It wasn't fun for my heart, Jim. My blood pressure.
I loved it, man. I loved it. You know, didn't Boswell throw either a touchdown or a 2-point conversion to Alejandro Villanueva once that Tomlin was the genius that nobody remembers? When they blow up, people remember. And then Tomlin, you know, like the good guy that he is, took responsibility. I don't know what that means. I take responsibility. But then he said later, the ball wasn't snapped in a timely manner and it allowed them to take a picture of it. So apparently the long snapper did something wrong. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
You can extrapolate a meaning there, but he took responsibility and then blamed the long snapper.
Yeah.
It is a new long snapper. Here's Tomlin makes the call. Danny Smith comes up to him and says, Mike, I love that play too. They practiced this play for years, and F1-2, it's usually a part of it too. But they've practiced that play for years, and Boswell throws a beautiful pass. But I can just see Danny Smith running up the mic. Mike, we haven't done that play with the new long snapper yet. He doesn't know X about this play. Yeah. Mike going, oh, geez. And then seeing the problem, whatever it was, unfold. And the defense took a picture of it. I don't know. That's all I envision. Oh, and Mike saying, oh, yeah, Danny, you told me we haven't worked that with the new long snapper yet. My bad.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I was saying, well, because they won, it makes for a nice humorous anecdote. If they would have lost, it would have been a completely different story. But the beautiful thing is they're 4-3. They're on a 3-game winning streak, and now they have games against the Bears and the Lions, which are super winnable contests before they take on the Chargers, who are now looking human after losing to New England. And if you look at the back end of the schedule, what we once thought was brutal and obstacles that were unable to be overcome. You look at the Titans, they've lost Derrick Henry. There's some speculation he could be out for the year. You look at the Chiefs, they're not playing at the level they used to. The Steelers can be in all these games. So where do you see them going from here, Jim? And can they not just compete for a playoff berth? Can they compete for the AFC North title?
Sure. To answer that without getting into it, sure. And we all know that. And we've seen these so-called difficult schedules unravel in this way. You know, the toughest team they played was first, and they were able to jump out and surprise the Bills a little bit. But I think your thought process is an indication of where everyone else's thought process is, and hopefully not the players and the coaching staff, where you not only looked at the Bears, you looked at the Lions. These 2 winnable games, then Chargers. So you're thinking Chargers. Are they? Haven't we seen this enough over the last 5-10 years.
Yes.
My feeling is that you have to play hard, means you can't look 3 games down the road. The Bears game has to be the Super Bowl for them. They have to proceed this way. And I'm not scolding you. I'm just kind of warning them. Hopefully, because when Mike Tomlin watches our podcast, he will remember that, oh yes, 1 game at a time. Thanks, Wex. But I think everybody should get that mentality, so that, because I can just hear the questions put to Tomlin about the Chargers this week, or the team this week. The Bears are not as bad as the Lions, but let's just think about the Bears. And it's a Monday night, so they get an extra day, and that will be cool. And the second of back-to-back home games is a comfortable situation for them. I've been saying it all year, hasn't looked like it, but they should finally put that together, even coming off a Monday night game. But 1 game at a time. And there's a new injury every week in this league, so I hate to look too far ahead. But it always unravels this way. And at the beginning of the year, we looked at the division as such a strong division. And I had said this then, that it reminded me of the NFC East in the late 80s, early 90s, when if you won that division, if you somehow survived that brutal schedule, you would win the Super Bowl. You were favored. You were so finely honed. And so that's what's the beauty of this division. And so that makes their schedule, the rest of their schedule, easier, because they're really honed. If Cleveland's the last place team, that was a brutal game. That was savage. It was just glorious.
Yeah.
in how hard they had to play to beat the last place team in the division.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be like that.
Right. I remember after the the Bills win that you talked about how they had to be on guard against a letdown against the Raiders. And I think it's kind of the same thing heading into this game against the Bears. The infamous Tomlin special. They have to come up ready to play.
Not this one.
Not this one?
No, because it's Monday. You get an extra day and you're coming home. You went on the road. You're coming home. It was off a bye, so it wasn't like that Browns game tired them out. I don't feel that same thing. I don't, especially how hard they had to play. They learned that lesson. They have to realize they're not that talented. They have to play that hard again. I think that realization smacked them in the face. So,
okay. All right. Well, let's hope that they can keep it going and get the win Monday night. And we'll have to adjust our schedule next week, because I don't think we want to go get off of 3 hours of sleep and record a podcast. So
let me add this about these so-called Tomlin specials. You saw what the Bengals lost to this week, right? Mm-hmm. A week after blowing out the Ravens in what had to be an emotional game. It's those games, coming off Ravens games. You're going to lose. It's not just Mike Tomlin that does this. Every team in the NFL goes through these ups and downs. Yeah. And I think after their first game against the Ravens, they play the Vikings on a Thursday night. So we'll have to see how that comes together in December. All right, Jim, it's time for the terrible 3. You ready? Uh-oh. Go ahead, man. All right. So you talked a bit about Melvin Ingram. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Are they going to trade Melvin Ingram? And we'll find out today if they do. And what do you think they will get in return if they do trade him? Oh, well, not much. 5th, 6th. I don't see them trading him. Mm-hmm. Maybe if they get a 4th, okay. Because Taco Charlton, as much as I got blowback on Twitter again for saying that he's looked good to me in practice. Now, I'm not supposed to write about what I see in practice, but that was a generality. I was surprised. Who's 98? And I had forgotten they had picked him up. Mm-hmm. Because he's built and he looks like a first round pick. Yeah. And he was flashing around the practice field. And so I don't know if he got credit for the sack, but he tripped somebody up, and I think TJ fell on him and TJ got credit for the sack. But Taco's played 10 snaps and he looks okay. He looks, he's an NFL body. I'll tell you that. He's got NFL athleticism. And the other guy, Truska, they seem to believe TJ Watt seems to be big on him, that he plays the run well. And so it's possible, but I'm not so sure that this is all what we're to believe in reports. All I see is that they're fielding calls, and I'm sure Ingram's agent reached out and asked them, "Hey, what are you going to do with this guy?" There's some disappointment, but I watch him. He seems like a total team player to me.
Yeah.
He's enthusiastic in practice, works hard. I wouldn't just give him away. No, I wouldn't give him away. But you start talking fourth rounder, that would be a surprise. And yes, I'd take a fourth rounder.
All right, Jim, the next one. Pat Freiermuth, is he more Heath Miller, Mark Bruner, or Eric Green?
I think you know where I stand on this. I mean, he's Heath. It's kind of, irreverent to just throw that kind of comparison around. But man, I thought he looked like Heath early in camp, and the need to improve as a blocker was Heath too. Everybody remembers Heath as a great blocker, but he wasn't that great blocker as a rookie. But he got stronger and he got better, and he became very effective. And Matt Spaeth was the better blocker on the other side. So I think we're seeing that dynamic of the giant 6'10" blocking tight end on the other side, with Gentry becoming Matt Spaeth in front of our eyes. So, Mark Bruner was just a blocker from the beginning and could catch. Freiermuth is like Heath. They're receivers who have the want to block, and you can just see they're going to get better as blockers. Right. Eric Green doesn't. Eric Green is the most naturally gifted of all of them, and just didn't have the want to that either one of those guys had. And that's why they let him go. And that, he directed a Super Bowl shuffle before that Chargers debacle in '94. So, I mean, that's what he's going to be remembered for in Pittsburgh. I don't want to go back to Liberty College again for this quarterback because of Eric Green. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, for a second round pick, if he is anything close to Heath Miller, that's a massive win for the Steelers there.
Well, it's funny, they have ranked, I was told they had Freiermuth ranked 30, 31, 32 in the 30s early, but first round. And, Heath was drafted like 27th without being looked at, without being timed, because he had an injury. Yeah. And so he kind of fell a little bit, but I think they had him ranked both around the same spot.
Yeah. Yep. And then closing out here, Jim, this rivalry with the Browns has intensified over the last few years. And I wouldn't say it's quite to the level of that with the Baltimore Ravens, but it's definitely becoming something that fans look forward to. And there's definitely some disdain and distaste for their players. Who's more of an enemy to Steelers Nation? Is it Baker Mayfield or Myles Garrett?
That's another reason I'm disappointed in Ben with this not Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph situation. He doesn't seem to like Mason, and now he's glorifying Myles after the game. Maybe it's for self-preservation for the next meeting or meetings, because he knows Dan Moore just didn't really look like he could block him in pass pro. It's Myles Garrett for me. I guess the NFL's rehabilitating his image, but that thug maneuver with slamming his helmet, Mason's helmet onto Mason, and then lying about Mason using a racial epithet, and now we're embracing Myles Garrett. That bothers me more than anything Baker Mayfield could do. Baker Mayfield's a tough little guy. I don't know if he's worthy of a number one pick. I watch Kenny Pickett and I see Baker Mayfield and I'm like, this guy's so easily sacked. He's small. I just not. And you wonder, how was Baker Mayfield the number one pick of an entire draft? It's like moving up for an inside linebacker at number 10 and not getting Luke Kuechly or Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
You got, okay, it's a good guy. Okay. But Baker Mayfield just isn't big enough. Mm-hmm. So, and I think I like him. I kind of like him as for a Brown. Myles Garrett, I don't like at all. I don't like that he's getting off with lying about Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they get to play one more time. Thankfully, it will be in Pittsburgh. There were some comments that were made after the game where Ben made in reference to Myles Garrett's cemetery in his front yard where he had all the quarterbacks' names that he sacked. He said that Garrett could have the tombstones, he'll take the win. So, great win.
Yeah. And then Garrett had some things to say about winning in Ben's house that should be posted on a bulletin board too. I can't remember the specific comment, but it's like, Miles, shut up, man.
Yeah.
I mean, shut up.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do this again? You know?
Well, hopefully Dan Moore's is ready for round 2. And I think that's the second to last game. I think that's a Monday nighter in Pittsburgh. So everybody will be charged up for that game. Well, Jim, we made it to the end here, the end of episode number 8. And listeners and viewers, thank you so much. We appreciate all your support here of the podcast as we continue to record super early, 5 a.m. and we post around 6:15. We're going to bring this to you weekly. Our schedule next week will be adjusted a bit just because it's a Monday night game. We'll let everybody know when that will be coming out. Please give Jim a follow on Twitter at Jim Wexell and check out his work on the Still City Insider. You can check out my work at thestillstudy.com and give me a follow at Still Study. And we hope everybody has a great week. And let's cheer on the Steelers to another win against the Chicago Bears. And Jim, have a wonderful week and good luck to the Bobcats.
Thanks, Jeremy. You do a great job with this. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next Wednesday. At 5 a.m.
All right.
All right, man. Take care.
See you, everybody.